Okay, guys, welcome to Happy New Year to 2021. So sorry about the little bit late. I had this for some reason it wasn't streaming onto the YouTube channel, but we got it fixed anyway. Just had to reset it up. So welcome to 2021, the year that's going to make or break many predictions, many property experts, and probably many conspiracy theorists and anti-vaxxers, vaxxers, and all these sort of people. So it's going to be quite an interesting year this year, I think, because I think what the governments have been able to do is almost push back the effects of the worst economy or the worst economic downturn we've seen in 300 years. Now, whether they've kicked the can down the road to this year or whether they're actually going to kick it down to the following years, or whether actually we've found a new way and we've actually got a grip on how to stimulate economies in a much better way, which is pretty much printing lots and lots of money. So, it's anyone's guess right now to see what's going to happen. But I think the important thing is that if we stay focused and really look at our own portfolios and our own situations and really, plan for that, and hopefully you've already done that, that I think you'll see it through. And I do think 2021 will be a decent year, which is quite good. Today's topic, will lockdown affect property? And look, we're going to look at the Brexit deal getting done. We're going to look at lockdown 3.0. We're going to look at 2021 house price predictions, stamp duty extension. Will we get it? Will we not? We'll see. And then we're going to look at mortgage lending back and also Georgia Senate cliffhanger. So it's looking pretty good for the Democrats, actually. But and then finally, Bitcoin rally. And not so much that I'm worried about Bitcoin. It's done amazing things in the last few weeks. It's more about the approach that's been taken to it. And this is the news. And if you see this, and I just saw this today, and I thought that's a classic example of what they do or the news does to us. Okay, so we'll look into that. But, guys, look, I mean, it's one of those sort of things with 2020 was one of those weird years that you just have, possibly the weirdest that's been. But, the reality was most people, a lot of people have come through pretty well. There's also been a lot of, I guess, winners and losers, like anything. But I think 2021, if you do it right and, you've got fair warning of what's been going on, I don't think the vaccines are going to be here super, super quick. So I think, it's going to be this year will be another weird year. And that's just part and parcel. But for the property industry, I think if you choose your places well, you can actually make money. And I think you can do quite well. I think there's going to be lots of opportunity. We're already seeing lots of opportunity, So, guys, I think, let's see how that goes. But, okay, so let's, and actually, before I start, guys, help the channel out. Make sure you subscribe, like, and comment. We've got the comments open. So, wherever you are on Facebook or YouTube or whatever, feel free to like and feel free to comment. And I'm happy to answer them live right now because actually, that's what this is all about. It's about getting you guys the answers you need to be able to make the decisions to give you certainty. And that's what this is all about. So any questions you've got, send them through. I'm happy to answer them. But we've got some good stuff today. And we'll start with Brexit. Brexit deal actually got done, which is an amazing thing. Well, it's not an amazing thing, actually. If we're being honest, I actually predicted this, and predicted it 18 months ago. I said it would come down to the last hour of the last minute of the last day. And unfortunately, I was right. I also said it was going to be a political thing, not an economic thing. I don't think it's necessarily been good economically, but politically, that's what the decision was. So that's what's been and done. So look, I think realistically, what we're seeing, is Brexit got done. There wasn't massive lineups at the Calais. I mean, yes, there was certain things. There's 700 properties or 700 products taken off shelves because people are refusing to send them. The government's saying you've got to register for VAT, and obviously the EU people haven't, and they're not going to. You know what? That gives more opportunity for other companies. So it'll all settle it out from that perspective. And we'll see what the economic cost was, or whether it's the opposite, and there's huge opportunity. I know the Boris was supposed to be going to India for a trade, speech, but obviously COVID's put a bit of a dampen on that. But look, guys, I think Brexit is one of those self-harm events, from a lot of perspectives, but it's done and dusted now, and we'll see where that plays out. But there's plenty of opportunity, and I think it doesn't matter what happens out there, it's how you respond to it. you know. And I think that's the important thing here. 2016 to 2020 really were, Brexit, self-harming events, and now we've got through it, which is great. So now we can focus on all the positive things that we can do by being an independent country. Yeah, because there is opportunities. There's huge opportunities. Okay, trade deals all over the place, that sort of stuff. A lot of them have already been done. There'll be more done, I'm sure. We'll probably get a US one pretty soon. So we'll see how that goes. Ooh, yes, lockdowns. It's amazing how divisive and dividing these lockdowns, and not just the lockdowns, but everything that, anytime you want to control a population or place a restriction on population, you get this total, either side. But look, the challenge is, I think, is that there has been a lot of U-turns, there has been a lot of last-minute decisions, there has been a lot of this sort of stuff. It's hard not to do that, I think there was a lot of, places like Singapore, where they've been able to have a compliant society. So when they say do something, they do it. It's made it a lot easier. But that has come at a cost, because obviously, we still have to wear masks everywhere when we're outside. We've got to use, we've got to tag ourselves, track and trace everywhere we go, log in, QR code, whatever. So, there's twos and froms. But look, how does it affect the property market? I mean, the positive thing about the lockdown 3.0 is that the property market is still open. So, and in a limited fashion, you can move people in, you can move people out. That's great news. Okay, you can do all those sort of things, inspections and blah, blah, blah. Obviously, there's some restrictions on them, but for the most part, it's a fully functioning property market. That's good news for investors. The challenge is, for any of you guys that are suffering right now because your tenants aren't paying, or they're falling behind, or they're on payment plans, 18th of March, that was decided last year, and it's been extended and extended and extended again to the 11th of January. It looks like probably today, tomorrow, it could be coming out very soon, that they're going to extend that potentially for another 3 months. We've got people who have been in there not paying rent at all since even before the lockdown, and we just have not been able to get out. We've got high court orders, a high court order on one of the places, and she's still in there. She's still being antisocial, but we can't get her out, and that really is a real problem. And unfortunately, that looks like that's going to be extended for a further period. Yes, they have, and if you're struggling right now, make sure you avail yourself of that 6 months payment holiday. If you took the 3 months, the initial 3 months, you can add another 3 months to it. Okay, if you haven't taken it, then get the 3 months now if that's what you want to do. It's a payment holiday. It gets added to, so you're going to pay more interest. Okay, but if it helps out your cash flow, it puts you in a better financial position, then make sure you do it. Yeah. So let's have a look at house prices, because it's interesting. I just pulled this down. It's, if you have a look here, you've got October, mortgage applications at 12-year high. September, house prices rise fastest since 16. House prices record levels despite COVID. You've got, just all this positivity. Yeah. And it's quite interesting, because that is the reality of last year. But I will say this. There was so much positivity, anyone would think that the house prices were growing at 15, 20% a year. In other words, booming. Yeah, that wasn't the case. We're talking about 5.7, depending on whose measure you use. You're talking about a 5% growth, which actually isn't. That's not that fascinating. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's what you want to see. Somewhere between sort of 5 and 8 a year is a good growth level, sustainable, and all that sort of stuff. But obviously, a lot of people are saying people can't afford it. But the reality is that's not that much of a growth. And if you look at the previous years with Brexit and austerity, actually, we're still lagging behind. There's still plenty of room, I feel, for growth in the marketplace. So, even though the headlines are boom, the reality of 2020 was it was a good year. It wasn't that, special and wonderful and that sort of thing. But anyway, guys, I haven't had any comments yet. So, jump into the comments and give me your thoughts. What did you think about last year? Was 2020 a good year, a bad year? It's interesting. We've seen for almost a decade, the entire market outside of the major cities was ignored. There was no infrastructure going in. There was no spending. There was no real investment stimulating things. Yeah, but we started to see that last year, which is fantastic. And I think if that continues this year and the government does stay true to what they've offered, then that can really make things, work well. So, let's see how that goes. But look, house prices drop in 2021 as COVID impact hits. All right, rising unemployment, end of stamp duty, Brexit effect on the marketplace. The OBR, the Office of Budget Responsibility, is saying minus 8%. Now, if you look at what I've been saying, and I've been saying this for quite some time actually now, minus 3% drop. Yeah, I'm still sticking to that. I don't think that the challenge is if the government keeps stimulating and putting money in to how they have been, then we may find that actually house prices could rise another 5 this year, okay, if they extend the stamp duty holiday. But I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. Yeah, so I'm still sticking to my minus 3%. And the reality is look, minus 13% to about plus 8 is what the predictions are. And I think that's determined on two things: the government spending and what happens with the unemployment rate. And in some ways, the unemployment rate is affected by what the government spends or the stimulus. So we've got to see what happens there. Had a comment in from Bart. Bart says, how big an influence will QE be made on by the Bank of England? Oh, okay, so QE, quantitative easing, guys. So what we're talking about is effectively printing of money and effectively the Bank of England selling bonds effectively to the marketplace. Let's just keep it really simple. So effectively printing money, okay? QE, a massive amount of QE, okay? We're talking about 40% of the money supply. The money supply started there. There's about 40% more cash in the economy since the start of COVID, which is unprecedented. That's never happened before. And that's why stock markets are jumping up. That's why, billionaires. I was reading a stat the other day. I think it's the top 500 richest people have added 1.9 trillion to their wealth last year, which has never happened before. Yeah, it's an extraordinary amount of money. So, so to come back to that, sorry, I put that off things. So look, but that's interesting. My YouTube mustn't be coming through because he's got a comment. Anyway, doesn't matter. How big is the influence? I think it's a huge influence, and I do think that is one of the essential things that has been the reasons why the economy has done what it's done, and I think it will continue to be. The question is, and this is always the question, is it depends on which economics school of thought you come from. Does this just kick the can down the road and cause huge inflation down the road? Does this end in deflation? We just don't know. And I think that's one of the challenges we're going to have is right now, this is unprecedented. This has never happened before. Nobody's ever done this before in this way. Yeah. Except, and I'll say this, if you go back 10 years ago, when I started talking about the US and how much money they were printing, I was saying that actually these guys are printing so much money, this is bound to cause inflation. This is bound to, they'll be okay right now, but they're likely to drop, et cetera, et cetera. That didn't happen because what did they do? They kept printing money and printing more money and printing money, and they printed and they've continued to print. And then they printed more money when COVID hit. So yes, their national debt is rising, but if you look, interest rates were, here back then, and now they're down to nothing. So the repayments that they're making, maybe they haven't dropped. Maybe they're the same, maybe they're more. But because the interest rates are so small, that actually, can have a positive effect. And I think that is going to have a big effect on the developed economies. Now, my challenge is, and I've mentioned this previously, is not in the developed economies, it's in the developing economies, which I feel are going to suffer because their interest rates are still quite high. And so for them to borrow or to refinance debts, and when a lot of people are talking about debt tsunamis, if you look at the breakup of the debt that needs to be refinanced, it's largely the developing economies, and they can't refinance to a lower interest rate. They're going to get hit because of the risk, So it's the wrong time to be refinancing now, and I think that's one of the issues there. So Ashley just says, growth stocks, financial markets have done really well in 2020. Do you see people moving profits into property market? 100%. I think at the end of the day, all this money, this 40%, okay, that's been created, that is going into financial assets, it's going to non-financial assets, it's getting spread out in the economy. Now, one of my distinctions here is this. Why I think it's working and it will work is because whereas in the global financial crisis back in 2008, what happened was all that money went to the top and we said it'll trickle down in the economy. It doesn't. Yeah. What a lot, even though they're being given a lot of money to the top and that stayed at the top, and that's where we get the extra 1.9 trillion to the top 500 people. The reality is a lot of that money has come down in the form of furlough, unemployment payments, benefits, universal credits, whatever you want to talk about. And that is actually quite good for the economy. Yeah. So Ashley's just had another one. If it was your money on the line, where in England will you buy? That's a really easy one, Ash. For me, look, I'm back in London now. I'm back in London. I know a lot of people say no, but you know what? London since 16 has been in hibernation. I think it's going to start to come back. It may not come back a lot this year, but I think actually by next year, we'll start to see London come back. It is still the best fundamentals. Yeah. And already, our, Singapore, Malaysia, all the, our Asian investors are starting to ask questions about London, and not just London, but London commuter towns and Manchester and Birmingham and the major cities where there's infrastructure and investment going into. And that's the key distinction there. So for me, they're the places you want to go to. Now, this is largely a capital growth strategy. If you're looking for income and you're not worried about growth, then fine. You can go out and find much better yields elsewhere. So it just depends what you want. And if you want to balance your portfolio. I mean, look, if you're not sure about that, give the team a call, have a chat with them, and they can run you through and they can show you real live examples of something in the middle of nowhere that has a 12% yield, or something in the middle of, the city, which might have a 3% yield, but the capital growth potential is so much more there than what you're going to get there, So, yeah. All right, so one more and then we'll move on. When do you see London bouncing back? I think it depends a lot on what happens this year with the unemployment rate. I think it's either going to start to come back this year, and we're already seeing the commuter towns come back. They've already started coming back last year. So I think they are coming back, and I think we'll see London start this year or next year. It'll be one of the two, but I'm banking that, for me, and I mean, I'm doing this actually in real life, I'm banking on London this year. So I'm starting to look at London this year. I'm actually selling some of my property that are off in the middle of nowheres and just taking the equity out because I'm like, you know what, they're not really going to grow much more. And what I'm doing now is I'm putting that back and reinvesting it back into London and London commuter towns. That's pretty much it. All right, I know there's more questions there, but I'll come back to them. Let me jump on to mortgage experts predict stamp duty extension following third lockdown. Look, everybody's been predicting this. They've been predicting they have to because we're going to fall off a cliff if they don't, all that sort of stuff. I'm not 100% convinced they are. Yeah, I think there's been quite a lot of stimulus. I think if the market over the next 3 months continues to do well, I think they might go back to the stamp duty. And in some ways, I'd rather they do that because what I don't want is house prices to keep going unabated because that, in some ways, stamp duty, I don't have a problem with stamp. Well, actually, I do have a fundamental problem with stamp duty is that I think, if anything, it should be levied at the sale, not on the purchase. Yeah, and part of that is just because it allows more free movement of the economy. And actually, in some ways, I'd rather the government just to stay out of it. But let's not even talk about that. But look, do I think they're going to renew it? I've been saying that they're not. And I still don't think they are going to. Or if they do, what they'll do is they'll renew it for locals, but expats and overseas buyers and those sort of companies and things like that, they'll bring it back in for that. So I think, and this is one of my predictions I've already made, but that I think that's going to happen in 2021. Last year was broad-based general stimulus. This year, I think, is going to be more targeted stimulus. So it's going to be like, okay, these people are getting that, these people are getting that, but no, you're not. You're fine. Yeah. Whereas last year it was more like, oh my goodness, just get money everywhere. Yeah. So I think that's going to be one of the distinctions that we'll see happening. Interestingly, mortgage lending. Yeah. Nottingham returns to 85 lending, Coventry to 90% loan to values, and these are some good rates there, 2.95, 3.1, 3.29, 3.69, pretty good rates. And we're going to start to see that now. I think as the market, we had the worst happen last year. So a lot of lenders pulled out of the market. They pulled all their products. And the reason they pulled their products was because they had too many applications. So as they come through, they'll start bringing those back. Yeah, so they put those through, they'll bring those products back. And then it'll be, hopefully it's more measured now. And the whole progression industry, yeah, from, purchase or, the decision of purchase, reservation through to completion can actually happen. Because what happened, a lot of the solicitors were just totally spanked. A lot of the councils weren't able to do the work they needed to do to get the information to be able to change. I mean, let's face it, the system is crap. Our system, the way we buy property and all that sort of stuff is absolute rubbish. It's so archaic, it's back in the dark ages. Someone needs to design a blockchain, distributed ledger way of storing and transacting that. And when somebody does that, does it well, and the government allows it and adopts it, they will make the next billion, That's a prediction too. So, but yeah, but we'll see on that one. Look, I think one of the things for me on this whole game with the mortgages and the stamp duties and all that sort of stuff is the government knows that they need to keep the property market moving. It's the same in Australia, I see. The government realises that if they let the property market die, the whole market dies. And that's not what they want. They want to keep that property market, moving. And that's why they want to keep the property market open. That's why they want people moving in and out and the market functioning normally, because that's how you get the money cycling through the marketplace. Yeah. The last thing they want as a government is everyone to stop spending, to put it away in their coffers and not spend, because that creates all sorts of problems for them. So, yeah. So I've got a question here from Ritesh. So liquidity in the market will help us recover quicker. 100%. And in actual fact, there's a lot of argument to say that we're already in recovery. Yeah. Now, you can say, well, hold on a sec. Yeah, we had the worst drop and now we're coming back. So yeah, it is recovery. Absolutely. The question is whether that recovery is sustained through this year. And I think it will be, because I think what they'll do is they'll keep printing more money if they need it. They'll keep, but effectively, the government will say government borrowing. They're borrowing money so they can spend it. I think that's going to happen. They can't get to this stop and then stop. Yeah, because they would undo all the good work. Yeah, and it has been good work. I mean, it has been, to come through the way they have is bloody good work. And I know we all take the piss out of Boris and, what he's been doing, how they're handling the medical side of things. But actually the economic side, is pretty damn good. So yeah. So will it help recover quicker? Yeah, 100%. It's if anything, it's probably already recovered. And I think that's what we're going to see is a continuance to recovery. But what I do think is there's still a little wag in the tail of the unemployment and redundancies and things like that. Yeah, so that could hold back a quicker recovery. All right, but we'll see what sort of stimulus. I mean, the furlough's been extended. There's more stimulus for the the leisure industries and things like that. So we'll see. So John's just said, with jobs more at risk, would you aim towards tenants on benefits as government will keep paying them? Yeah, okay. So look, I'm not a big fan of people on benefits. Part of my strategy is I tend not to go for the lower end of the property because you just have more problems with it. And yes, you've got to, if the government was paying that directly to the agents, so you knew you were going to get paid, 100%, but they're not. Yeah. And there's another element of me that says, actually, that's a good thing. We should be giving people responsibility to then take that money and pay their bills. The problem is a lot of them don't. A lot of them go out and spend it frivolously and they don't have enough to pay the rent, and then they get behind, and then that becomes the landlord's problem. Okay. So do I like, look, I think you've got to look at the strategy that you're adopting. If you're adopting a cheaper property that's going to attract people on benefits that can afford that, then as long as you can mitigate that risk as best as possible, great strategy. Yeah. Or the other side, which is a lot of the people we work with are more, they don't want the lower end of stuff. They want the higher end of stuff that don't tend to get benefits. Okay. As much. We still get benefits. And the problem now is you can't deny or you can't decline benefits. Okay. So yeah, do I think you should change strategy? No, it depends on what your strategy is. And look, the guys, if you're not sure, give the guys a call in the office, because they'll talk you through strategy. They'll talk you through about, your situation, and they'll look at where the market is right now and where the market's likely to go, and they'll marry up a strategy for you. And I think when they do that, you'll get clarity on whether you should be going for tenants with benefits, tenants without benefits, high-end, off-plan, HMOs, refurbs, whatever it is, strategy. Yeah? Because look, as I say, there's 1,000 ways to make money in property. You just have to choose one and know the rules of the game so well, that you can mitigate the risks and then do it over and over and over again. Yeah. Some good questions today, guys. Yeah, some good questions. So let's move on. So 2020 US election results. So I just pulled these off, when was it? 6:55, so PM Singapore time, which is, 2 hours ago. It looks like the Democrats are going to get both houses. Yeah, they're far enough ahead now, I think. Nobody's calling it quite yet, but if you look at where the votes have to come from, it's looking pretty good, which that's actually good for all of us, okay? And look, I don't really care about America as much as I care about, UK, Australia, and Singapore, but what it means is that America can actually make decisions. It can make policies. It can, hopefully move some ways towards fixing the disparity between rich and poor. Now, make no mistake, Trump and Biden, they're both tarred with the same brush. They're both, in the hands of lobbyists. They're both puppets for that sort of thing. So that's not going to change much. But the Democrats are tending more towards, and the whole Republican, attitude around spending and all that sort of stuff is ridiculous. But anyway, by having two houses and by having the Prime Minister, our presidency, it means they can make decisions. They can make policy. And that's what governments need to do. And particularly now, and I think this is where our political system is failing, because the market's changing so rapidly. AI, deep learning, all these concepts are changing so rapidly. Government is almost, it's not redundant. I think government still has a big part to play. But if it can't make decisions, if it can't move because it's stuck in these lockdowns effectively, where they own this house and they own that and they can't make any decisions, it's useless. They're not functioning. And that's what we've had for a lot of the time. Sure, Trump had, his time where he was in control of it, and before that Obama had it. Although Obama's final 2 years, he couldn't do anything really, couldn't get anything through. Or it was a lot of give and take, and therefore not necessarily the way that you want it. So it's quite interesting, but we'll see where it goes. Interestingly, and I thought I'd just interested this. So, in fact, this has changed again since I saw it was this at 6 a.m. UK time. I checked it out. $35,000 for one Bitcoin. Yeah, pretty full on. Like that's grown up. But what I want to show you is just on the other side. If you look down the bottom, yesterday's news was Bitcoin prices highest fall since March. Bitcoin fails, bringing dizzying rally to a halt. Bitcoin slums, slamming brakes on New Year rally. Yeah, that was yesterday. That's 1 day away. Today, it's like Bitcoin breaks above 35,000. Bitcoin tops 35,000. Bitcoin above. It's amazing. The news, and that's what they're there to do, is they are there to create headlines, the ups and the downs, and all that sort of stuff. And I think one of the key things here is, if you read the news on one day and you go, oh no, well, wait till tomorrow, because then it's going to be the total opposite. So you really have to get educated and one of the reasons I love doing this is because it allows me to give my opinion. What you're going to find is, if I see something that says that, I go and look for something that says that, which is kind of how journalism used to be. And not that I see myself as a journalist, I'm a property investor, and at the end of the day, the unfortunate thing is now news is not news. News is biased, news is one-sided. I don't know what happened. Somewhere we lost it. It'd be nice to get it back. It'd be nice to be able to read a newspaper and actually get both sides of the argument and then be able to make a decision myself as to where I fall. But we're just not seeing that anymore. It's unfortunate. I think it's something that's missing in this instant society that we have. So, yeah. But look, one final thought, guys, is, we're borrowing a lot of money right now. The UK, and in fact, not just the UK, all the world economies are borrowing a lot of money. Yeah, as I said, 40% increase in money supply across the world. It's unprecedented. So the question really that we have to ask ourselves is that getting us through the issue now, but kicking the can down the road? Does that mean that our future generations are going to be left with masses of debt that are going to have to be paid back? And the reality is, I don't think so. I don't think that's the case, and I don't think that's what's going to happen anymore. I think we are going to continue to print money, and and it's going to be more and more, and that's going to continue. That's just the state of play in the fiat currency model that we operate now, in the economic model, the neo liberalistic, whatever you want to call it, democratic, side of things. And sure, there's going to be splits. There's going to be splits between, well, there already is, between China and its allies and the West and its allies. And we're seeing that, the Great Wall being built again. The Great Wall is not a physical wall anymore. It's an internet wall, and I think that's where things are heading. And, who's right, who's wrong, who's better, who's worse? I think they both have positives and they both have negatives, yeah? And I think the key for me, and one of the things that I was going to say, I did a video called The Great Reset, which is where I basically said, there was a statement come out from the World Economic Forum. It was a video, and it basically said, by 2030, these were the predictions, yeah? You'll own nothing and be happy for it. And of course, the media's got on, that conspiracy theories got on with that, and they basically said, oh, look, you're not going to own any property by 2030. They're going to take it all back, and you'll be, it'll be 1984 Hunger Games type thing. And I said, no, that's not the case. Because having read Klaus Schwab's books, he's the head of the World Economic Forum, in 16, 18, and The Great Reset, which he's wrote this year, or sorry, last year, 2020. That's not what he's saying. That's not what he's ever said. And actually, when I read the books, they make sense. And a lot of the stuff that he talks about is coming true. Part of that stuff that he talks about is part of when I talk about share investment, is what I do with my shares, because it's almost predicting the future on where things are going in terms of the AI, in terms of automated vehicle, in terms of, wearable health watches and things like that. All these sort of things were predicted and have been predicted. And that's one thing I like about the World Economic Forum, is that they're big enough, the people in there are big enough and they're influential enough to make a difference. But wow, did I get hammered by the conspiracy theorists, by the all sorts of things, whether it be the religious guys who are, quoting the Bible and saying how the end of times is near, and through to the conspiracy theorists saying, that I'm part of the global elite and all this sort of stuff, little old me. Interesting thing, from a YouTube perspective, because all through Christmas I was laughing my head off to some degree over some of the comments, because it was keeping that video has got more views, I think, than any other video I've had, which is great. Let's see if we can do it with this video too. But no, it's amazing when you don't let the truth get in the way of a good conspiracy, as they say. But guys, any other questions you've got, chuck them into the thing, and I'm happy to answer them now. But look, the other side of it is, which actually I haven't got there, but what we are doing is we're starting the new webinar series. So it's 5 webinars over 5 weeks. Every Tuesday. Every Tuesday at 5 p.m. UK time, GMT time, we're going to be doing a webinar on property investment. And we'll be diving deep into how to make money in 2020 and the strategy and structures and that sort of stuff. Okay. But if you go to www.gladfish.com/webinar and sign up there, it's the winter webinar series. Okay. And, what we really want to do is get you really good quality education that's based on, years of experience, not, emotions up and down and things like that. So yeah, guys, look, that's pretty much me for today. But, don't forget to subscribe, like. Any questions you've got, look, I'm on YouTube and I'm on Facebook and all these sort of guys now. So if you want to ask a question, type it into the comments, and I'm happy to answer it. Otherwise you can type, if you want to email me, you can email me at webinars@gladfish.com, and I'm happy to then take your question, record a video, back, and but we've got some good things happening this year. So I'm about to start doing the whiteboard weeklies, which is a sort of deep dive into a particular property concept, and we'll be publishing that. Looking forward to a great year. Got huge things happening with the businesses, so I'm really excited about that. But yeah, guys, I haven't had anything from YouTube tonight, even though some of them say comment from YouTube. So my comment in YouTube must be down. Anyway, it looks like somebody's pulling them across. Anyway, doesn't matter. Guys, thank you very much. And if there's no other comments or questions, I'll leave it there, and we'll see you again next week, same time, 12:30 on Wednesday. All right, guys, have a great night. See you later.